You've no doubt seen your state's National Guard called out for floods, for hurricanes, or maybe riots. I was a Guard member for 22 years. Most people, when they think of the Guard, they think it belongs to the state governor. And in some cases it does, but here's actually the truth. And we're seeing this play out. At any moment, the president can grab control of the Guard, even over the objections of the governor. And if that sounds strange, it kind of is. It's not just strange, it might actually break the spirit of the Second Amendment. Because remember, the Second Amendment, it's not just about your right to keep and bear arms. It actually starts with this line: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. A militia, by definition, was supposed to be independent of federal power. But if the president can just federalize the Guard at any time he wants, especially for domestic use, can we honestly call it a state militia? So now legally, the courts have backed up this in a way. In 1990, in a case called Perpich versus the Department of Defense, the Supreme Court said that Congress can send the Guard to train or even deploy overseas without asking governors. It kind of makes sense when it comes to war, because the Guard is a reserve component of these branches. But domestically, in plain English, Washington's in charge when it wants to be. And that power's existed actually quietly for almost forever. But here's the problem: the founders did not put militias in the Constitution so that they could just be turned into a second standing army. They put them in there as a check on federal power. Joseph Story was an early Supreme Court justice. He said that militias were, quote, the natural defense of a free country and a protection against the usurpation of rulers. By the way, that only works if states actually have a militia that the president can't just commandeer. For a long time, people ignored this conflict. Presidents federalized the Guard during wars or disasters, and governors usually went along with it. But now, in an era where executive power is stretched and abused, where Donald Trump openly talks about and uses the military against American citizens, it's not just a dusty legal question anymore. It's actually urgent. So I want you to think about it. If your state's Guard, the force that you think of as yours, can be grabbed by Washington at any time and turned against you, then what's left of the militia, of the Second Amendment promise? You know, that safeguard against tyranny, it's gone. And if the Guard isn't really a state militia anymore, then one of the pillars of the Second Amendment that the right loves so much has already crumbled without us even noticing. This isn't about right or left. It's about balance of power. The courts need to revisit this. Governors should have more authority over their guards. And if we care about the Constitution, not just the slogans, but if we care about the real thing, then we need to recognize that a militia controlled by the president isn't a militia at all. It's just another arm of the federal government. So ask yourselves, if the founders wrote the Second Amendment to make sure militias could act as a check on federal overreach, what happens to our freedoms when that militia no longer exists in any real sense, or when it's turned against its own people? Maybe it's time to stop ignoring this. Maybe it's time to fight for the independence of the Guard, again, particularly for domestic use, before the Guard is continuing to be used against us in more states, in more communities. If you think this conversation matters, join in, share it, because this isn't just history. It's happening right now in front of us.